Russian forces are using kamikaze drones for cross-border attacks into the northeastern Sumy region of Ukraine, according to a military official. The portable so-called kamikaze drones carry warheads and detonate on impact. They are small and disposable devices equipped with cameras and GPS that, when launched, locate nearby enemy assets and dive on command. The town of Krasnopilya was shelled with mortars 4 times and bombarded with kamikaze drones. 4 people were wounded. In general, the situation is quite tense. Yesterday, the communities and territories along the border were shelled with different kinds of armament with self-propelled artillery units, mortars, MLRS, ZHYVYTSKYY said. Shostka, another border town, was shelled with mortars and heavy artillery on Wednesday morning, ZHYVYTSKYY added. Heavy fighting is taking place in southern Ukraine along the borders of Kherson and Mykolaiv regions, according to Ukrainian officials. Russians were shelling many districts of Mykolaiv, the government said Wednesday. For the second day in a row, the town of Berezhny came under fire Tuesday, according to regional authorities. Shelling in adjacent rural areas set fire to crops, they added. The government said heavy fighting was raging in several villages along the regional border. In Kherson, which has been under Russian control since March, more activists, politicians and journalists are reported to have been abducted. The occupiers and local collaborators are making more and more loud statements about Kherson region joining Russia, the government said, but added that every day more and more Ukrainian flags and inscriptions appear in the city of Kherson. The extent of dissent and resistance in Kherson is difficult to gauge, but several attacks have been made on Ukrainian officials who chose to collaborate with the Russians, as well as poster campaigns against the occupation. Earlier this week, Irina Vereshchuk, Ukraine's deputy prime minister, urged civilians in Kherson region to leave if they could. She said that if necessary they should travel through Russian-annexed Crimea and added that it is almost the only evacuation corridor available to those wanting to flee. Russian occupying forces have made it increasingly difficult for civilians to leave Kherson for Ukrainian-held territory. Anecdotal evidence suggests hundreds of Ukrainians have left Kherson through Crimea, taking buses through Turkey or Russia and Georgia in a long trek to reach parts of Ukraine not under Russian control. According to our calculations, up to 50% of the region's population, which is 500,000 people, have already left Kherson and Kherson region, Hennady Lahuda, head of Kherson Regional Military Administration. Routes out to Kryvyi Rih and Mykolaiv, which Kherson region residents previously used for evacuation, do not work now. The occupiers do not let people out. There are columns which are being let out, but people are forced to spend weeks in the fields and go through occupied Melitopol and Vasilivka to Zaporizhia. Ukraine's defense of Lysychansk, the last city in the Luhansk region it still holds, just became a lot more tenuous. For weeks, Russian forces have been trying to obliterate Ukrainian defensive positions to the south and east of the city, in an effort to encircle it and cut off Ukrainian troops tasked with holding it. In the last couple of days, the Russians have advanced into several villages south of Lysychansk, though not without sustaining losses from Ukrainian artillery fire. Indeed, the Ukrainian military claims that some Russian battalion tactical groups are being consolidated or withdrawn to restore their combat capabilities. The Institute for the Study of War, in its latest daily analysis of the battlefield, says the Russian breakthrough from the south means they may be able to threaten Lysychansk in the coming days while avoiding a difficult opposed crossing of the Siversky Donets River. The settlements that Ukrainian officials confirmed as lost Wednesday are all on the western Siversky Donets riverbank, within 10 kilometers of the southern outskirts of Lysychansk. Ukrainian forces continue to fight on the fringes of the city of Severodonetsk and in adjacent communities, and they benefit from higher ground in Lysychansk. But their already compromised supply lines are becoming more tenuous, and the sheer magnitude of Russian firepower is grinding down defensible positions. The reverses suffered in the past few days, after weeks of determined resistance, probably mark the most difficult week for the Ukrainian military since the surrender of the last defenders in Mariupol. The attacks near Lysychansk are being carried out in tandem with renewed Russian efforts to cut the highway that runs west to Bakhmut, a critical line of communication for the Ukrainians.